Hey everyone, it's Katie from Moonflower Moments. I wanted to hop on here and discuss a topic that I've been spending quite a lot of time thinking about recently. So I realized that while blue used to be my favorite color, I'm starting to really gravitate toward orange. And of course, if you bear with me, that definitely has significance. I'm a Cancer, sun sign, so of course everything has a meaning, right? But I realized that it took me about probably 4 to 5 weeks to realize why orange, I was all of a sudden just very obsessed with it. And at the same time that I was thinking, like, why all of a sudden do I just want to have orange everything? I asked for Marlena Teresa to do a reading for me because she was offering readings to just anyone who watched as long as we emailed her. And she did a reading for me on my creative voice and what that looks like, not only within this space, but overall. So of course that is a specific topic to me, and it made me realize that of course like orange is associated with creativity. So this is definitely a theme that I am going through my life and I am exploring right now. So in particular, I do teach the dual enrollment classes at my high school. And so that means that I'm teaching college courses that essentially have very little curriculum. And so for the first couple weeks, we spent a lot of time getting kids to strip back some of the rules that they've been taught about writing, no cursing, no contractions, no abbreviations, things like that, and really try to write in a way that is very authentic to their voice. So in the process of them analyzing what their own voice is, I've been doing a lot of work looking at mine and trying to figure it out for myself. And I think that I'm finally coming into some answers. So I wanted to share with you guys today the decks that I have used during various parts of the creative process. Right now I am building 2 different curriculums from scratch, so I definitely consider that to be a part of the creative process. I'm also, contemplating just various topics that I would like to share with y'all here on YouTube, and I've been doing a lot more art lately. And so these decks have been the ones that have been just, I think it took me taking a step back to realize it, but they've been really helping me through all of the kinks and the tricks, and just really getting me used to engaging with my creativity in a way that I'm not used to. So after that very long intro, or what feels like a long intro to me, because you know that I'm short and sweet with my videos most of the time, I want to show you those decks that I treasure the most because of their use for me during the creative process. So the first part of the creative process that I've of course been engaging with, and all of these parts of the process, we go in and out of it depending on how many projects we have at once, or, sometimes we have to revisit things. But the first part of the creative project for me is always just brainstorming. And so I oftentimes rely on Tarot of the Moon Garden to do brainstorming work. So I find that because these images are just very cluttered, there's a lot to see here. And so it lends itself very well to brainstorming because I can ask a question and my mind will all of a sudden kind of fixate on a particular plant. And because plants always have so much imagery to me, what I'm seeing right here is the mushrooms. So if I pull this during the brainstorming process, I would want to think about how things are interconnected, which totally makes sense for the Queen of Cups, but it makes sense for the mushrooms as well because of the mycelium that connects between mushrooms. So it's not necessarily even that I'm bringing in the tarot meetings per se when I'm using this. I'm really looking at what imagery pops out to me and how that imagery can be symbolic of the different ideas that I want to implement. So I use this essentially to generate ideas. On a similar vein, I also love the Voyager Tarot for this exact purpose. So she makes it a lot on my channel because, like I said, I have been doing a lot of work with my creative voice, so this has been one that has been near and dear to me. I like that the images are so cluttered. Some people do find it to be incredibly overwhelming, but because they have a guide work, I end up being okay. I can kind of sense my way through with a guide word. But I will pull a card, and then similar to the Tarot of the Moon Garden, if I fixate on a particular issue, so like this right here with the Emperor, I definitely see like this closed box. I might think about the structure of how I am going to prepare my ideas to make sure that they flourish. So not only like just drafting ideas, but what sort of structures am I going to implement to increase their long-term longevity. So this is usually it kind of, while the Tarot of the Moon Garden kind of gives me the what of the idea, I think that this is starting to slip into the how of it. how am I going to support this idea through the imagery that comes across within this deck. Now, once I've spent some time brainstorming and just kind of like throwing everything on the page, per to say with the table, I need to make sure that my creative vision, whether that be a lesson plan that I write or a video that I decide to film here on YouTube, aligns with like my overall vision for life. And so I have to pick the Oracle deck that represents my cultural values, I would say, and my just in general, like my spiritual values the most. And that's going to be the Prophet Oracle. So this actually has a lot of deep messages, and quite a few of them actually come from the poet's section called Working. So you can see like these little words down here are different sections of his larger book. And so when I end up pulling a card that says like work, keep pace with the earth, this is like an absolute essential thing for me to keep in mind when I'm working through the creative process, because what this is telling me is keep pace with what's in front of you. Don't get lost so much with the ideas, but actually consider the resources that you're working with. And so I very much enjoy this in terms of making sure that whatever I create is in line with my vision for life. And since this reflects my values so nicely, it's just an invaluable tool. So I really enjoy this deck for all of those reasons. Like, I have some landscape cards in here too. So for example, I was doing a lesson plan last night and I just got stuck because I'm trying my best this year to, there's an issue with education in general where we just have really gotten to the point that we care more about pacing and what things are supposed to look like instead of keeping track of the kids that are in front of you. And I do feel like as a 7-year teacher, I am fighting against that system. So when I was lesson planning last night, I pulled this card, which I thought was just, it was just perfect, you know, because, you know, it is one of my forms of creative expression. And it is the vision of one lends not its wings to the other. So it asked me to take a step back and make sure that the lessons that I'm writing within my classroom give my students the opportunity to explore their own personal philosophy. What's the point of doing all of this if they're not learning who they are as people? There's no point in it. You know, I don't really care how much you know, but you need to go out into the world and be able to assert yourself and to do so with confidence. So I thought that this was a very fitting thing. But I know that I've also pulled this card before, Only When You're Empty Are You at Standstill and Balanced, and this has definitely encouraged me to sit down and journal my ideas for YouTube before just hopping on here and making a video. So this would be considered like a little intention setting deck, one of a couple. I also use Tarot of the Dream Enchantress for intention setting. There we go, here we go. And I do that primarily because of the guidebook. I think that this guidebook is just a beautiful little joy. So earlier today, I pulled a card and it felt like it was giving me thematic advice for my creative journey. So not just like guide words or this is what you should do advice, but rather like this is the overall theme that is running through your intentions and is running through your works. So look, we'll see here. That is the Queen of Cups. Oh, and just like the perfect advice for any creative journey. Look at this one. So it says, cherish the feelings of your heart, follow them, and find yourself transformed. Love it. So, and I think that because all of these cards have just one or two little messages, this deck does an incredible job with helping with intention setting, with clarifying my intentions, of helping me understand what do I want from this process? What should I put into this process? So I think in that way, it's an invaluable little tool. It's not one that I see talked about a lot, but I love it. And I love that the images too are just a little bit kooky because they get the creative juices started. Now, once I have an idea of my intentions and sort of the thematic things that are running through my content or my creative things, my creative journeys, I pull out the Faceted Garden. So this is where we're past the step of setting intentions and we're starting to think about logically how this can be done. Because this deck has so many like physical resources that are listed, such as fountain, flame, fruitful, morning song, light. I think that these words can be an easy metaphor for the building blocks of how you start your process. So I pulled a couple cards before the school year started, and I really did find that these concrete images and these concrete ideas helped me to have something tangible to set my intentions in motion. So one of the cards that I had pulled right before school started was humanity. That's not really like a tangible thing, but it definitely is a tangible enough noun for me to where I felt like that was an appropriate thing to bring in this year. So yeah, I know that I'm talking about teaching quite a lot, but I mean, y'all see what I do here on YouTube. So I think when it comes down to it, it's just exploring another aspect of my creative life gate. Oh, that's so beautiful. Like if I got that, I would think about how to protect the ideas that are forming and to hold those creative ideas close to me before anyone else can interrupt them. So this gives sort of those tangible resources to make the idea happen, and that's the Faceted Garden. So essentially, once I've decided what that space is going to look like and what kind of resources I need to just provide like sustenance and structure to those creative ideas, I also try to contemplate who I am within the process. And this is similar to the intentions, but I think we're going to consider it more roles. And that, of course, is the Wild Unknown Archetypes. I actually am about to give this copy to someone who did my first tarot reading that was just really impactful to me, because I bought the pocket art oracle and I can't wait to see what it turns out, because I have like super tiny hands, so I'm hoping it'll turn out good. But most of the cards in here, or actually a lot of the cards in here, not most, are aspects of self. And so I feel like, I mean, even if I pulled the temple, which is a place, that's archetypal enough energy that I can think about how when I'm moving through the creative process, I need to be a temple for the ideas that come to shelter them, or perhaps I should revere my ideas like the temple and really spend the time and energy honoring them and working on them. So this is a sense of like, how should I behave within the creative journey? Who should I inspire to be, and what should I bring to the table? So yeah, that was the Wild Unknown Archetypes. So at that point, the idea is probably already in motion. So I want to have a couple decks to use to monitor the creative process and just check in with it to see how it's progressing. So I would pull the Queen of the Moon Oracle. And actually, I'm happy that I decided to brainstorm this prompt because it gave me a way to use this oracle. I have not used this yet within the creative journey, but I think that it's an incredible one to use because of its associations with the moon cycle. So of course, if you pull a moon that is waxing, the idea is growing, but if it's waning, of course, it is retracting. You know, if you get the full moon, it means that the idea is, you know, really brought to light, or even, you know, the new moon means that we have new beginnings that are coming. So I think that this is to kind of check on the health of the idea or the health of the creative product that I'm creating. Where is it at? And, you know, just to give me a check-in so I can see, do I need to nourish it in this way? So that's Queen of the Moon. I would also use Runic Odyssey in a similar capacity. And let me actually hold this one so that the light, you can see it. So I think it does have these moon phase cards in here. So in that way, it kind of overlaps a little bit with the Queen of the Moon, but it is primarily a rune deck. And I definitely see these runes as representing like big status points for the project. So this is achievement and life cycles. So the project's probably going pretty okay in that way. I have strength and determination here, so I would probably need to step it up and just be a little bit more determined and show a little bit more faith when acting on the idea. Destiny and mystery. Ooh, that's really interesting. I would probably pull a tarot, oh my goodness, I'm tired. A tarot card to think through that. So these are the big ideas that kind of just allow me to check in on the status and maybe perhaps what needs attention. I love this little deck. I don't use oracles a lot, but this is one that gets a lot of use in my collection. Now, if I need to generate ideas, I am definitely going to hop onto the Wild Radiance Tarot. I bought this deck, and this deck actually, you know, inspired this entire video because, like I said, I'm obsessed with the color orange, and I think it's because I need to do long-term thinking about my creativity, which is, of course, associated with orange and the vitality of my ideas. So every time I have used this deck to explore what the color orange means to me, to explore the themes that are associated with orange, like the ones that I've listed, and, you know, playfulness and just kind of like garish, all eyes on me kind of attention, I have been very incredibly pleased. I also like to use this to generate ideas because some of the cards are pretty straightforward, but others are really shown in a different way. So I find that some of the more unique depictions of the cards really just stimulate my brain. Like this Seven of Swords is just absolutely glorious with this like illusion that is in front of this spiral. Like, which side do we walk on? Where do we go? Are my efforts going to be, you know, futile and in vain? It's cool. It's neat. So it makes me think out of the box, which I think when you're stuck in the middle of a creative project, a deck that can show you a different perspective is exactly what you need to carry on with the idea and keep the ideas flowing. So this is definitely one of my troubleshooting decks. It could also be one of my generation decks too, like generating ideas, but I think it's better for breaking through those creative walls. So that is Wild Radiance. It is my new deck of the month. I don't think I've bought anything else, so actually that's pretty good to know. Oh, I lie. I actually bought that pocket archetype, but it is what it is. I'll be good one day and like not buy a bunch at once, but two is not too terrible. All right, and then you knew he was gonna show up, so if you're tired of hearing me talk about him, feel free to fast forward. But William Blake is also going to be one of my creative roadblock, obstacle, getting rid of the obstacles kind of deck. So I think that this deck just inspires divergent thinking so much. My brain has to go through an entire mental exercise when I'm working with it. The keywords are a little bit different than some that you might associate. Like this is Two of Pentacles, so you can probably figure out that balance like totally makes sense with that. But like there's a sense of tension here that is just like so palatable that I think just my brain is very happy with the way that the associations can be clear, but there's a deeper nuance to it because this is a curated art deck. We also have like these little phrases, so I find that this is a great deck to help me troubleshoot because sometimes it's not the tarot imagery itself that sparks an idea, but it's these little phrases that are on the side. But you know guys, like this is my #1 deck that I would recommend to anyone who is a creative person because this guidebook, oh, Ace of Poetry, which I love this for that because Ace of Poetry is actually Ace of Wands in this deck. Look at that little message. In the creative process, being in contact with the purest and highest form of your being provides the impetus for fresh expressions in both art and life. I love it because I think that the Ace of Wands is like our raw expression of our spirituality and our creativity in its highest, most potent form. I love it. I love everything about it. But the fact that it has creative messages for everything, like, stop, y'all. Like, when I was doing a reading last night, after doing some heavy lesson planning, I said, what do the kids need from me? Bam, assistance. And I was like, okay, I got it. My plans were way too ambitious. So I've been using it in just everyday life. I use this a lot behind the scenes here on YouTube, and that's why it keeps showing up because I think that the tools that are the most useful to us are, of course, the ones we're drawn to talk about. So don't sleep on this deck. It is a really good one. So after I've hung out with William Blake and probably been very stressed out by the chaotic artwork, I need to take a moment to relax. So oftentimes when I'm in the middle of any kind of creative planning, I pull 10 of Wands like nobody's business. And maybe that's a good thing, right? Because 10 can represent like the overabundance and the Wands can represent the creativity. And like, I get it, like, but I do struggle with having like too many ideas and just having too many things on my plate at once. That's my Virgo rising. We'll blame it on that. So I like to pull in the surrender cards. I use these bad boys all the time. I'm actually thinking about buying a second copy just because I would love to keep one in my purse. I think it's exactly what you need. So it's another little deck that is a little problem solver. It can just give you that sweet little message that's on the bottom to help you settle in, because I think creativity is a push and pull. Oftentimes we are creating, but we don't think about the rest that is necessary for ideas to ruminate. And we need to take that time to step back and ponder and think about what those creative ideas and those projects mean to us. So this deck definitely helps me to take a step back when everything is just very 10 of Wandsy back here. It's definitely one of the cards that I get quite a lot. And I'm also going to throw in the Crow Tarot for this one. So y'all probably don't even know that I have this deck because I never talk about it. I bought this for my husband. So he ended up not liking it. That's okay. So I inherited it. So it always kind of felt like a little bit off to me because I'm not really into the bird energy as much as he is. So I think that there's always been a disconnect. But I like to use these as like altar cards to hold place for what I'm trying to bring into the world. And oftentimes those are associated with my creative visions. So when school was starting up a few weeks ago, I pulled from this deck and I pulled Chariot and the Fool, and I thought that those were two really great energies to bring into the school year. So I put them on my altar and I just constantly ruminated about what those two energies meant to me. But quite recently, yesterday, 2 days ago, I brought all of my decks outside for the full moon, which is not something that I do often, but I needed like a cleanse and a recharge after reading with so many different decks at the tarot event I went to on Sunday. And when I brought the decks in, I looked at my basket and the crow was just literally screaming to me. He was calling to me, and he's not usually on my desk. He's somewhere else. But I was like, you know what? I think it's time to use him. And I did find that every time I asked a question about the general scope and sequence of my creative plans, the crow knew exactly what I was talking about and was more than willing to give advice. So I'm starting to see this deck almost as like a King of Swords kind of deck, someone that can stand back with objectivity and can give you perspective on how to move forward in a clean, precise way. So I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to revisit this deck and revisit my relationship with it, because now that I've had that experience with it and it gave me very concrete advice on how to see a situation from a different point of view and from a larger point of view, I don't think that this deck is going to leave my desk for a little while. I think we're having a moment, and I think that's probably because this is where I am in the creative journey. Hopefully not the Tower. Let's okay. Knight of Wands is a little bit better. This is where I am with my creative journey, where I've put so many things into place at once, and now it's time to step back and recognize that the best practice is the most sustainable one. And I think that that can be true for anything that you do in your life. Okay, so now let's pretend that we've reached the end of the creative process. And of course, like, you're gonna bounce in and out of all of the different stages that I've described. I know that I do, because creativity is not something that's straight and narrow. It is divergent thinking in every capacity. So let's just say that you're trying to culminate a project and you're trying to finish it. I think that we need to have some decks that feel like a little bit more earthy to me, in terms of trying to integrate what you've learned throughout the process, or just integrate that creative plan in general, like to make it happen, to manifest it. And so I pulled for that, for the integration, the Fifth Spirit and another deck. So Fifth Spirit is earthy in the sense to me that like it is just very grounded in the everyday world. And so I have not used this to integrate my lessons from a creative journey or even reflect on the tangibility of a creative journey yet, but I feel like because the pips have no people in there, it gives you the opportunity to step inside. And after everything that you've learned thus far from that creative journey, you can step inside of this picture and imagine that you yourself are the Four of Wands and you're bringing those ideas back home with you. How can I integrate it? Well, with Four of Wands, I think that we need to celebrate, but what this image is saying here is not only do we need to celebrate, we need to celebrate around a fire in a cozy way, in a way way that makes us remember that we have that strong foundation. So I think that it can be useful for helping us to imagine scenarios in which we get to implement ideas, but also reflect on the larger meaning of what that journey meant to us. And how are we going to carry that forward, you know, not only after the project ends, but much longer after that, in the years to come. How are we going to make sure that these lessons have meaning for the inevitable future? So that would be fifth spirit for my, I think my integration of the creative process. And I have one more for that. And it's gotta be my Herbcrafter. So hello, my Virgo deck. I'm very happy that she's coming out to play. This is definitely her time to shine. She's a Virgo deck for sure. I don't know if any of y'all agree with me, but I definitely get Virgo from this. So I think that this deck helps me to integrate the lessons I've learned more than anything else. So because of the guidebook having like these short little sweet messages about not only the plants, but tarot in general and how can we implement this wisdom, I feel like this is a deck that like feels like a coming back to home. So we've gone on these journeys, we've done all of these things. What are we gonna bring back, and what is the significance of all of those journeys? So Herbcrafters, with its nice little earthy element, I think really stands for that long-term stability of how everything has progressed and what are we going to do to keep it going. All right, guys, and to close it out, I just want to briefly share with you some cards that I had pulled in relation to this. So before I filmed this video, I asked my cards, why am I obsessing over the color orange right now? Like, is it associated to creativity? If so, how can I implement these lessons? And of course, Queen of Wands jumped out on me. So I think that we are going to see a lot more of this content in the sense of me kind of reflecting on what it means to have my creative voice. And it's very clear that all of these different facets of self they're speaking. You can see the words that are coming through here. We have the Eight of Pentacles, so I think that that definitely represents like the mastering of my voice and trying to kind of figure out what my niche is. And I think I have a good idea of it, but it's a matter of trying to stay consistent within my niche, but also leave room for the play that the Queen of Wands brings in. And then of course, my beautiful King of Cups. This is my signifier. So it's really telling me that right now is the moment for me to step into these other roles, to set aside the King of Cups, because the King of Cups is essentially the diplomat. Because he rules the emotional landscape and he's a king, he is able to take on all of these different roles for all of these different people. In a way, I kind of see him as a synthesis of all of the other kings because of his experience and because of his empathy. His empathy for the other kings allows him to step into their roles often. So it's time to, you know, set aside him and really kind of embrace what the Queen of Wands has to tell me along this journey. So that was all that I had to share with you today, and I would love to hear if you leave it in the comments or do a video response, whatever you want to do, DM me, whatever. I would love to hear decks that you think that you can use for your creative process. And you know, if this is something that you use tarot for. I know that people use tarot a lot for writing, so I mean, I could have brought some of that in, and I guess I kind of did with like lesson planning and then also planning content, but you know, I think it's interesting the way that we use decks, and I like to hear people's different uses for these incredible, amazing tools that are in front of us. So I hope that all of y'all have a beautiful day, and I really appreciate all you do to support my channel, and I hope to see you again next time.